I just, I just, I just speak my peace, keep my peace.
What's good, y'all? Welcome to the Speak My Peace podcast. As always, I'm your gracious host, Greg Lacey. Like we always do about this time, I hope this episode reaches you all in good health, good wealth, and that you're taking care of yourself and your loved ones, as we know how important that is. Before we do jump into this episode, I do want to start this off by saying, if you are a fan of the Speak My Peace podcast, please make sure you are subscribed on whatever streaming platform you listen on or watch on. Please make sure you are leaving ratings. Please make sure, if applicable, you are liking and commenting on your favorite episodes, just so that I have an idea on, your feedback and what you all like. With that being said, please make sure you're sharing the podcast as well. I look back and think about some of my favorite things in life, whether it's my favorite movie, favorite song, favorite album, favorite shoes, whatever case it may be. 9 times out of 10, I discovered that thing through word of mouth. So word of mouth is important. If I think about just, what made me want to indulge in whatever that thing is, it was I trusted someone's opinion and they may have recommended it to me, and then I end up liking it. Or I was already thinking about trying something or indulging in something, and I leaned on someone's whose opinion I trusted, and that gave me the final confirmation I needed to check that thing out, and I ended up loving it. So I treat this podcast the same. This may be someone's favorite podcast, and they may not know it yet, and you sharing this podcast could be the bridge to them discovering it. So please make sure you are sharing the Speak My Peace podcast. Also, if you are on Instagram, please make sure you are following at Speak My Peace Pod. All the updates for this podcast are posted there first before anything, because that is the only social media we have for the Speak My Peace podcast. Now, with that being said, Jay-Z has this bar in the song No Hook that goes, like, Frank Lucas is cool, but I ain't trying to snitch. I'm going to follow the rules no matter how much time I'm going to get. I'm going to live and die with the decisions that I'm going to pick. So FD Haven for caving. That's why we don't speak. Made men ain't supposed to make statements. End of the story, I followed the code and cracked the safe. That bar details a relationship that Jay-Z has with a former business associate of his, one who I believe started cooperating, and that ended whatever business relationship they had because of this code of the streets of not snitching on people, not offering information, not cooperating with any law enforcement in any sense. The sentiments that Jay-Z shares towards his former business associate, the code that Jay-Z is speaking of following, was a code that I wouldn't even say is a code. If the streets had commandments, that would probably be a top 3 commandment. Not snitching, not cooperating with law enforcement in any instance, not, offer information on someone, whether you know them or not. It's just something that you don't do. It was something that was frowned upon. It was unwritten law. A lot of times those, breaking that law or breaking that commandment came with consequences. But that was a testament of the time that Jay-Z grew up in and the time that album came out. That album came out, I believe, 2007. Either came out 2007 or 2008. I believe it came out 2007. And that was a time to where snitching was still a law. I think for sure, 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, maybe early 2010s as well. Snitching was just we didn't even have to speak on it being a written law. It was just a law. You just don't do it. It's just something that you don't do. I think that those days have gone and passed, and we are now in a digital age to where that doesn't stand true anymore. Snitching has become a prevalent topic as of late. We're seeing it play out in media with Tekashi 6ix9ine 4 or 5 years ago. We're seeing it play out now with Gunna. We're seeing it playing out with the other rapper Boston Richie and so many others. And that made me just want to touch on this topic because it's been a relevant topic. This past summer, I had these IG live sessions, or not the summer, it was in the fall. I had IG live sessions to where every Thursday leading up to the week of the release of the first episode of season 6, I will have these 30-minute, quick sessions on IG Live where I would speak on, something that was happening within our culture either the previous week or that current week, and just give my thoughts on it, serve as a substitute for the podcast. And one of those episodes was a day that I believe Gunna had got released from prison. And obviously that was the big topic that everybody was touching on social media. And so when I got in my session that day, I kind of broadly shared my thoughts on snitching and not snitching, whatever the case it may be. And I realized in talking about it that I had more to say than the 30 minutes would allow me during that session. And so I was like, okay, let's turn this into a podcast episode. So here we are today. I'm going to say this. We live in a social media era, and that's the main reason I believe that law, that code that once stood in terms of snitching no longer stands, because we live in a time to where people are offering information. It's a new era. People are willingly offering information. They are telling on themselves. A lot of times people commit crimes. The first thing they want to do is either go on IG Live and broadcast that they did a certain thing. They're giving us a live coverage of them committing said crime. They're going on Facebook posting pictures. They're going on Twitter, posting tweets about the details of the activity they did, and it's senseless. Not only are people telling on themselves, they're telling on their friends and their associates, knowingly and unknowingly, just because people love to talk. This is, again, we live in a social media age. People are telling the people that they don't know. This is just the day and age that we are in, to where people are willingly offering information on things that were once kept private and didn't have to, had to be disclosed that this should be private. And talking is just common in this digital / social media age. People are talking more than ever. Going back into the speaking about broadcasting the things that they're doing, a lot of times I don't think that people even know they're doing what they're doing in terms of speaking on certain things and offering information on certain things. And it's just, I can't wrap my mind around doing these things that people are doing. For one, let me say this. Let me disclose this. Me personally, I understand the no snitching policy, but that doesn't apply to me. I'm a snitch on you. Let me say that before I say anything. I said this in the IG Live session. Don't commit any crimes around me that has nothing to do with me. Don't involve me in something that has nothing to do with me. And I'm going to do my best to continue to live my life to steer me away from being involved in anything like that. Because if it comes down to it, none of you niggas' lives is more important than mine. Like, I worked too hard in my life. I've been through too much in my life to succumb my life to being in prison because I wanted to keep my mouth closed, knowing that I have no involvement in something. I appreciate and value the time with my family way too much. I have parents, I have grandparents, I have siblings, I have nieces and nephews. I value that time with them way too much to be taking a charge for something that I have nothing to do with, just so I can uphold the code of the streets when I don't live by the street life. I think when we go into this code of no snitching, there's people who it applies to and there's people who it don't apply to. I don't live a life that it should apply to me. Now, if you're living that life and you are doing things that, one of the consequences is jail, and you're taking, prison chances, then you should live by that code, because that's the code of the streets. That is the code of whatever business that you're doing, whether you're hustling or not. That's the code of it. So you should abide by that, because a lot of times those things come by consequences. Me, I'm a citizen. I have a nice job. I enjoy, where I lay my head. As I said, I enjoy spending time with my family. I enjoy lavish vacations. I just enjoy the finer things of life. And so I'm not living a life that's going to implicate me in any ordeal like that. And I'm not going to water them saying this, because this is a life that I've built for myself to steer me away from that. I was raised around people who live by that code and still to this day live by that code, who lived a certain life so that I wholeheartedly believe that I don't have to live that life. And I learned from that. I learned that, certain people took certain chances, certain people took certain risks, certain people made certain sacrifices, knowing what the potential consequences are going to be. Some people came out clean, some people didn't. But with me being as close to these people, I understood that, if I was to veer down this path, my outcome could possibly be the same. And so they lived that life to show me that this ain't the way to live. There's more opportunities out there. There's more things to do with your life. There's more to value in this life than to be living a street life. And so I took heed to that. I wanted the best for myself since a young age. And so now I am aspiring to continue to improve my life. I'm continuing to just get the best out of the things that I want in life. And there are some people who are still living that life, and they should abide by those rules. But that no snitching stuff does not apply to me, as I said. But as I said, I would snitch on somebody if I had to, if I was put in that position. That doesn't really matter. Like, even though I said it, I personally just don't believe in cooperating with the law in any way. I've been very vocal on this podcast about how I feel about police. I've been very vocal on this podcast about how I feel about the government. And because of how I feel about those people, I feel like they have a job to do and they need to do their job. I'm not helping them do their job because they're not helping me make my life easier. They're making my life and people who look like me lives harder. So why am I going to aid them in something that they're getting paid to do? The opening bar on the theme song for BMF, 50 Cent says, "The D's ain't this good, these niggas is ratting." And that speaks volumes to the day and age that we're in. Niggas is telling, and that's just what it is. A lot of times these law enforcement agents, they don't have to really do their job because, as I said, people are broadcasting their crimes on social media. They're talking about their crimes on social media. So all someone has to do is really open up a social media app and scroll down someone's timeline, and they're going to find what they're looking for. The perpetrators or whatever crime it is, maybe 5 times out of 10, either, that crime is posted in somebody's story. If they're stupid enough, it's going to be posted on their feed in their timeline. And you don't have to go too far to have to go and get witnesses and different things like that, because people are their own witnesses. People are telling on themselves. Going back into, the talking being more common today in the social media age, it was never cool. It was never cool to speak about the things you do illegally. At least growing up for me, it was never cool. I think that if you did something and you got off scotch-free, you counted your blessings and you don't speak about it. Because the more you speak about it, the more people have information about what you do. So now that's opening the floodgates for, if you were to finally get caught, if the statute of limitations haven't closed, they have more witnesses because now this person has information. So now they can hang something over someone's head and say, hey, we know that you know about this, and we're going to say that's the easiest way to get co-conspirators. Because you have information about something, you can say that they may have aided someone in committing a crime just because they have that information. And when you hang that over somebody's head and you start to throw out these jail sentences and say, you face up to 10 years, face up to 7 years, somebody's going to start telling. This is the day and age we're in. I want to say that I think people are, the correct term for people today is they're citizen bloggers or citizen paparazzis because of their actions on social media. Moving away from people telling themselves, people telling on other people. A lot of times when we see crimes committed, whether it's a homicide, whether it's a burglary, whether it's a robbery, whatever the case may be, someone is looking to offer information on that crime for the sake of views and clicks and engagements. Back in the day, the only people who would be able to have these exclusive details about certain things was bloggers and paparazzi. Because if you break the news about a murder, you break the news about a burglary, you break the news about a car theft, whatever the case may be. If you're the first person to do it, that's where all the traffic is going to go. Yes, other sites or other, blogs or other news stations are going to pick it up after you, but because you're the first person to break it, all that traffic is going to go to you first because you're the only person to offer this information. And so we're seeing that same thing translate into social media in the age we're living in, to where certain things happen and the first thing people want to do is post about it, offer their opinions, offer conspiracy theories, or post factual things about whatever said thing is so they can get those clicks and those engagements. Snitching or offering information has become incentivized today. People are getting clicks, views, and comments for, getting this 15 seconds of fame for a said thing. I'm thinking about, rest in peace, with the death of the late rapper Takeoff. Takeoff died, and I think within less than an hour, there was a video circulating around social media of his lifeless body laying on the ground with a pool of blood around him and his uncle Quavo, holding him in his arms. This is that incentivized thing I'm speaking about. People shared, the first person who shared that video, I can't go into I'm not a mind reader, so I can't go into the mind of what made that person share that video, but I can guarantee you that video is probably one of the most viewed video regarding that matter to this day, because it was the first one they were the first one to share it. Other blog sites, other, news sites, whatever the case may be, picked it up after them. So they may have different angles. They may have other people who had videos, but because this was the breaking video of that, it had the most engagement. So that generates too money. Now you're getting over 1 million views and people are commenting, and now Instagram recognized that as a potential monetization item. So now you're getting paid to share this thing, and that incentivizes people like, oh, this is what I can do. Well, let me find the next big thing, the next death, the next rapper death. Hopefully I'm in the vicinity so I can share that. I can go even higher than I did in this previous one. We today are less we're dehumanizing a lot of things. Like sharing a video of a lifeless body, whether it's a celebrity or not, is inhuman. The person who lost their life may have parents, grandparents may still be alive, may have children, may have siblings, may have other relatives, may have close friends. They're more than likely on social media. So imagine you scrolling social media, just having a good day. You laughing at a couple of reels, you seeing basketball highlights, you're seeing just different things. Whatever your interaction is with social media, you see this. And so you're scrolling, and now you're seeing your loved one laying on the ground dead in a pool of blood. Imagine what that could do to your mind. It would traumatize you. No matter what age you are. And the reason why I say that's inhumane is because people don't care about the human aspect of that. They don't care who it's going to affect. They don't care how it's going to affect them. They don't care the damage it's going to do to them. They just care that, this is a potential money grab for me. So let me share this. Going away from sharing the actual video, following Takeoff's deaths, we started to see a lot of people offering information off of what exactly happened. Oh, this person got into an argument with this person. They were arguing about this. This person had a gun. I remember seeing a post of I guess there was a video from behind the scene from where our argument started, and somebody zoomed in on a freeze frame of someone holding a black thing. And oh, this must be the shooter because he has a gun in his hand. And these type of developments is snitching. But it's not frowned upon because we are in the social media age. People are doing things for clicks, comments, views, and shares. The more of those things you get amongst social media, the greater the possibility of you being paid for sharing those things. So now everybody is being digital detectives, I should say, not realizing that you're breaking a code of the streets. And more than likely, people who are doing these things are not even from the streets, but because these things that are happening, these things that are covered are things that happen within the streets, it's two different codes that are being followed. So once you implement yourself or invest yourself in, dealings of the streets, you have to follow those codes, but people are not doing that. So that's why I say we live in a new era to where snitching is not the same. Snitching is not looked upon the same. Go back into those high profile cases. We've seen Tekashi 6ix9ine 4 or 5 years ago get indicted on RICO charges and go down with a whole gang of people. And he kind of got off scotch-free. I don't want to say scotch-free because he served time, but the numbers he was facing and his co-defendants were facing were football numbers. And essentially, he kind of got off with a slap on the wrist because he offered information on the people that he was around. This is what happens when you intertwine those two things of the streets and civilians, because the civilian is not living by the code of the streets. Yes, they're involving themselves in street dealings, but the core of themselves is not the streets. While these people, all they know is the streets. Yes, they may be making a lot of money. They may be of high stature, and maybe appearing to be a certain way, but all they know is the streets, so they follow by those rules. So if they go down, they're expecting everybody to follow those same rules. But when you have a case like Tekashi 6ix9ine, you have a kid that, at the core of him, he's not from the street, so he don't follow by those rules. Of course he's going to tell. I don't think anyone who has any information or any experience of dealing with actual gangsters, I hate saying gangsters, that sounds so corny, but gangsters are street people. I think they can look at that situation and say, I'm not surprised that kid told. It probably predicted that the kid told, because why wouldn't he? Here you are, a kid who is living his lavish lifestyle, making millions of dollars. Granted, your whole identity is based upon the identity of these people who are surrounding you. You're enjoying the finer things of life more than the average person. Why would you give that up for some people who you just met 2 or 3 years ago? I don't think many people would give that up. And it's unfortunate that, people who got arrested with, they're still facing those football numbers. They're probably never going to see the light of day outside of those prison walls again. But it was just careless in them believing that this young kid who don't follow the same streets or same ethics and values that they did was going to uphold what they uphold. It was honestly stupidity to believe that. Well, now we see him get out, actually serve a shorter sentence, because during the time that he was served, we had the worldwide pandemic outbreak, and he used that as a lot of people got out. I guess it was like a COVID exemption when the conditions within like certain prisons are so bad that someone had like a charge that wasn't so serious, they were able to get out earlier. So because of that, he was able to get out earlier. He get out earlier. He go back to living a lifestyle that he was living before. He signed another major deal, got more money, and now on social media he just posts, basically his life didn't stop. Essentially, I'm still making money. I'm still living this lavish lifestyle. When a year ago I was in prison, but now I'm back out because I offer this information against people who I just met 2 years ago, and I don't care about. And so now he's back to living that life that he missed when he was in prison. Another one we see him play out in public is Gunna. I think this situation is different because I think many people believe Gunna to have been a person of certain stature, to where he wasn't someone who was a kid who had no involvement in the streets or didn't live by the code of the streets. I think many of his fans and many people who, were fans of just the lifestyle he lived and the people who around him lived, believe that they all came from the same type of environment and followed those same code and ethics. And so when, YSL got arrested on their RICO indictment, the two biggest names that we saw was Young Thug and Gunna, because they are two of the biggest rap artists. And so when we fast forward a couple months and we see Young Thug is going to trial and Gunna is on the other side of those prison walls, people start to speculate whether or not he snitched, the terms of, how he got out so early and different things like that. And he has to live with that. But the common theme and the common problem I see within both of these situations is idolization. I don't want to get too biblical or religious in the podcast, so I'm not. But I know the Bible speaks about, idolizing men, and, about how you just shouldn't do it. And I think that's where the problem with all this comes from, is that, I spoke about in episode 117 that despite people attaining the status of, celebrities and stars and different things like that, at the end of the day, they're still human. They go through human experiences. They may not live the same day to day as us. Their bank account may be 10 times, 20 times larger than ours. But at the end of the day, they're still human beings. They go through certain experiences we go through. They still deal with emotions like we do. They still have feelings like we do, and so on and so forth. And so when you remove that human aspect and you start to idolize them as, and I wouldn't say as gods, but when you idolize them, in a sense, you are looking to them as gods. And so people place these celebrities and these rappers on a high pedestal because of the life that they live, the things they're talking about in their music, the cars they're driving, the houses they're living in. They think that, wow, those people are above us. Although we are all human, we are at this level. And because this person has this much money and they're living this type of life on Instagram, they are at this level. And so when you start to idolize people, you uphold them to a certain standard. And when you idolize people, the biggest thing that comes from that is that more times than not, you are going to be disappointed because you're looking to them as guys or these larger than life figures. And so you expect them to be perfect. So when you have a rapper like 6ix9ine making this really aggressive music, aligning himself with Bloods in the neighborhood of I believe it was Brooklyn they were from, you start to believe that, oh wow, not only is this kid music good, but he's a gangbanger. So now this is someone who I can pattern myself after, or this is someone I can take a liking to because he's a larger than life figure. He's untouchable. Same thing with Gunna. Although Gunna doesn't make that type of aggressive music, Gunna makes really good music, and he surrounds himself with that Atlanta rap scene to where people make aggressive music. And so people place him on this higher plateau to believe in that, wow, he makes a lot of money. He has some of the biggest hits. Some of his friends are some of the biggest rappers within that area, and they make those type of music. And so we place him on this plateau. And so when he gets released earlier, that his most notable co-defendant, we start to question, wow, wait, how are you out and he's still in? What, there's a disparity there. Y'all were indicted on the same charges, and some of these charges y'all are indicted together. And so people are disappointed because they held these people, and those are not the only two examples, but those are the most prominent examples I can think of at the moment. But people start to think like, wow, I held you to this higher standard, and you are not who exactly I believe you to be. So now they're disappointed. So now they're leaving rat emojis in their comments. Now they're speculating and tweeting about whether someone is a rat or not, or offering this information about whether this person ratted, the terms of how they got out earlier. And there's just so many things in culmination of that, and that all boils down to idolization. We have to stop idolizing. I'm saying we in general, but because I don't idolize anybody. I guess you can kind of say I kind of idolize Jay-Z. I'm not saying I idolize Jay-Z, but on the outside looking in, y'all were like, nigga, who are you talking about? You idolize Jay-Z. But going back into what I was thinking about, just idolization, when you idolize people, you place them to the standard of God, and you expect them to be perfect and the ultimate being, where at the end of the day, we're human beings. So we have to stop this idolization of people and holding them to a higher standard than ourselves, because 9 times out of 10, they are human beings. The biggest thing with these people being arrested and offering information and people snitching and all these things like that, to me, it boils down to this infatuation with gang culture. I say it all the time that, Black culture is the most marketable, Black culture is the most influential culture in the world. And like it or not, part of Black culture is gang culture. We think about hip-hop culture is Black culture. Within hip-hop, there's rap. Think about gangster rap, go back to NWA, go back to Death Row. You can go back to Aftermath and certain artists that were on Aftermath back then. You think about just a lot of West Coast artists. Embedded in the history of that is gang culture. You can come to today to drill music. The core of that is gang culture. There are people who are detailing their lives that they live either prior to them becoming big, or lives that they still may be living, while they're big artists, and they're putting it on wax. And so the core of that is just sharing the experience of that culture. And how that ties back into what I'm speaking about is that the affinity for gang culture is embedded in rap. And so now, as someone is coming up and being the biggest rappers, they believe that in order to be of a certain stature, or in order to be looked at a certain way, in order to be looked at as quote unquote untouchable, you have to be somehow aligned with some type of gang, some type of local gang, some type of gang to where you live, wherever the case may be, in order to reach a certain status. And we're seeing a lot. Extortion has been around for years and years and years, but we're seeing it more than not today. Think back to a few years ago. Remember the funny meme with who says Soulja Boy can't come to the hood, that he in the middle of Compton, and some nigga, I think I said nigga a lot in this episode, but some dude, he put his arm around some dude in the middle of Compton, put his arm around some dude either punched him or he pushes him off him. I forget exactly the details of that video, but it was a funny thing, it was a funny moment in social media during that time. Even speaking about just like extortion, like some of your favorite artists, some of your favorite, one of the most popular, I'm not even gonna say popular, one of the most polarizing singers today has been extorted. There are rappers who are from Ohio. I don't even know what city in Ohio he's from. I'm speaking about a specific rapper. I'm not gonna say his name because it doesn't matter. But there's a rapper from Ohio, born and raised in Ohio, who is from a gang in the neighborhood that I was raised in. Like, I was raised in a certain part of Compton. On the block that I was raised in is in the middle of certain gang territory. There is a rapper, a popular rapper, just released the album last month, from Ohio, that is from that gang in the territory that I was raised in. And he's not the only one. I'm just pointing this out because that's the most close to me. That's how I tie it back into this episode. But he's from that hood. Briss Breezy. He's from a hood in Compton. Not the same hood that I was speaking about, but it's common in entertainment to where people, receive a certain status. And in order to take that to another level, they have to appear bigger than what they are. So they align themselves with certain gangs, certain person. A lot of time, these things are spoken upon, but the gang culture, even to minimize that to a minimum scale outside of entertainers, it has something that has always been appeasing. I speak a lot about how, I was raised in Compton for a certain point in my life, then I moved to the suburbs. I remember, and even still to this day, but I remember when I first moved to the suburbs, the interest in me was because of where I'm from. People ask, I'm the new kid in school. I moved to the school, or I come to the school in the middle of the school year. And people are like, oh, what school you come from? And I'm like, it wouldn't be a school that I'm from Compton. So now people are interested in finding out more about me. Oh, you're from Compton? Well, are you from a gang? Or what is it like living in Compton? Because a lot of those kids that I were meeting in the suburbs, their entire lives have been in Compton. I mean, not Compton, has been in the suburbs. And so, the only interactions they have with Compton or any type of hood is on either movies or music videos or in music. And so now they have this interest of like, okay, well, what is this life about? Because I want to explore that, because from what we see in media, people don't make it out of there. That's, y'all live short lives, and, you don't make it that far in life because of how bad that is. It's the war zone. It's impossible for you to make it out of that. And so I moved to this area when I was in middle school, and so people had interest in that. By the time I got to high school, people were then claiming gangs that they, one, were not from, but also, just had no information about. Like, around the time I got to high school, my freshman year of high school, 2007, this was during the impeccable Lil Wayne run. Obviously, Lil Wayne is another one of those artists, big artists. He's from New Orleans, but he's from a hood in Compton. Because people were such big fans of Lil Wayne, and because Lil Wayne was donning a red flag and saying blood and aligning, changing C words to B words and stuff like that, people were taking to that. People were taking that and incorporating that personality into their own. So by the time I got to high school, a lot of people I knew were Bloods. Never met a Blood in their life, never been to any Blood hoods, never got put on, any gangs or anything like that. But this is who they were. This were part of their identities. Even still to this day, some of these people still believe they're Bloods. It blows my mind. But that's just who they are. And let me be fully transparent. I shared this in the podcast before. When I was younger, I thought that I want to say I was a part of a gang, but I would claim a gang just because of my family and what my family was associated with. I believe that was a cool thing to do, to associate myself with gang. As I got older, start to realize that I was being stupid. Not only being stupid, but it was cowardly, because it was like I waited until I separated myself from living in that environment every day to now start acting like I'm playing a game. And so as I got more mature, I stopped doing that. But, a lot of times people in our situations, we don't have an option. Whether you're actually from a gang or not, you are associated because of where you live at. A lot of people laugh at, if you're on the outside looking in, the Shireen skit and Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid, Mad City, where niggas say, well, where you from, where your mama stay, where your daddy stay, where your grandma stay. That's the reason why he implemented that, because that album is a detail of his life at a certain point. And that's common in that, not in just Compton, but in any area like that. So where it's just like someone is looking for some type of interaction with you, somebody is looking for any type of friction with you, and you're claiming to be neutral. Well, now I want to know where you grew up at, because I'm going to associate you with the neighborhood you come from. And so that's common. We spend a lot of time, some people, as I said, some people can't escape that. Some people, they have to, take to those gangs. Some people have to join gangs. Some people had to live such a hustling lifestyle and incorporate that into themselves. And some people, like me, are fortunate enough to get out of those situations so that their life doesn't come to a point to where we have to incorporate ourselves into that. But a lot of times, more times than not, many of us just want to get out of those situations. We don't want to live in, areas to where it seems like a war zone or it's portrayed as a war zone. We want to live in areas to where we don't have option to choose whether or not we want to be associated with a gang in either our neighborhood, the gang that our family is from, or wherever the case it may be. We just want to live a normal life like everybody else. So here I was, a young kid, moving out of that area, thinking I'm finally escaping. And now I am in the suburbs where people are now perpetrating and being the people that I just moved away from. When more times than not, majority of us just wants to get away from that and get out of that. But we have people who see these things in music videos. We see these things in movies, and they start to idolize the people, because when you see someone like that and they are surviving for so long, they say that person is untouchable. So now I want to be as untouchable like him. I want to be a well-respected figure like them. So now I want to incorporate that into my persona. So on a minimized scale, I moved 30 minutes away from where I grew up from, and people started to incorporate that. But we also see it in entertainment, to where people are moving from Ohio, moving from Virginia, moving from Florida, wherever the case may be, Wyoming, and then they are coming to a city like LA because of work and because of business. And now they are incorporating themselves in that culture, that gang culture, to make themselves appear bigger than what they are, to achieve this invincible status. It's weird, but people have identity issues, but people have idolization issues. People want to be bigger than what they appear, because being feared is such a being feared is one of the biggest goals for a lot of people, especially for a lot of men. We speak about the male ego and speak about this machismo thing. Being feared is, one of the greatest things you can accomplish, because if you're being feared, people won't mess with you. And that's where we are in this day and age, where we have, people taken to this gang culture. Y'all may be asking, how did I get off topic, or how did I get to this away from snitching? That just goes back into the snitching, to where you are incorporating people who are neutral, people who have no idea of what this actual life is about, and now incorporating themselves into this culture. And 9 times out of 10, if it hits the fans, those people are going to offer information on the people that you just met 10 years ago that are taking them in, because they know this person from a hole in the wall. They know this person provided them protection. They know this person is helping them make a bigger persona or bigger personality for themselves. But outside of that, they don't care about the person in the human aspect, don't care about the person in their family. And so if they're indicted on some type of charge, they're going to take away their freedom. They're going to offer information. It's unfortunate, but that's the day and age we live in. Another whole quote on the song a week ago, he says, the labeling of a snitch of a lifetime scar, you'll always be in jail, just minus the bars. And we seeing that play out with Gunna. No one knows exactly how he got out, People don't know exactly the terms of his release. People don't know what he did specifically to get released. There's speculations of what he did, and there's been information offered about what he did, but it doesn't matter. The internet believes Gunna's a snitch, so now Gunna's a snitch, whether it's true or not. A large part of this that is sad is because in a day of social media, if enough people believe what you are saying, it becomes the truth. I know I spoke about previously the culture of gatekeeping and keeping people out of these communities that they don't belong in. We're seeing that play out a lot here. Like, if you go to DJ Academic's page and you post something about Gunna, and you start to see people posting the rat emojis or calling Gunna a rat, if you click on this person's profile, more than likely they're going to be from Lawrence, Kansas, somewhere in Wisconsin. They're going to be from somewhere in Idaho. They're going to be from the suburbs of California. And they are not of any type of culture to where snitching is a thing. But because they have enough followers, because this is a hot topic to speak on, and they're involving themselves in these conversations, that becomes the truth. Because they share their opinion, even though their opinion doesn't matter. Other people are also sharing that opinion because the internet is gullible. All you need is a certain amount of followers. All you need is a certain amount of retweets. All you need is a certain amount of likes. And you could shift the ideas, or you can shift the opinions of people. Someone can be living their life wholeheartedly to one code and have no followers, and see someone with tens of thousands of followers say something. If you align with what that person has said, opposed to going against that person, you are now in an in crowd. It's like this high school thing of wanting to be accepted. And so we're seeing this play out a lot of social media. There are certain people who are actually living those lives and saying, leaving these comments and calling him a snitch, whatever the case may be. And those comments are not being, taken into account. I'm not saying that they should, not saying they shouldn't, but no one cares about what they're saying because those people have 200 followers. But you had this kid in Lawrence, Kansas, who has 13,000 followers, has no involvement with any gang culture, has no involvement with Gunna, has no involvement with anything, is calling this man a rat. And so now that opinion is a fact. This is why gatekeeping is important. We have to keep those vultures out of our culture. Whether Gunna is a rat or not, he has to live with that. Like Hov said, the labeling of a snitch is a lifetime scar. He has to go through the rest of his life dealing with that label. But when he has to deal with that label because some YT kid from the suburbs or wherever shared that opinion and people, followed him and also start sharing that opinion, now it becomes a fact. It's unfortunate. Those people should have no involvement within our culture. Those people are important. Those people opinions does not matter. Joe from Kansas, Joe from Wisconsin, Joe from Idaho, Joe from North Dakota, your opinion does not matter. Do not involve yourself with Black culture because your opinion does not matter. As we get out of here, I just want to say, just be mindful. A year ago, everybody was pushing P, and now everybody's calling this man a rat. I've seen more P's on social media last year than I've seen in real life. And I've seen a lot of Phillies and Pirates hats in my life as growing up where I grew up. And what I seen last year as far as the emoji, the blue P, I seen more of that than I seen P's on people's heads where I grew up. And that just shows the importance. That shows the, what am I trying to say? That shows the influence Gunna has on his culture. And now the social media was once flooded by that emoji is now being floated by the rat emoji. And it's crazy how, the tides turn. I keep on quoting Hov. I guess we can call this a Hov episode. to where he said, you know, you live long enough, either you die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain. And that is the stage that Gunna is in. And I'm not making this episode to sympathize or empathize for Gunna, but I just want to speak on just the labeling of a snitch and gatekeeping in general, because it's important. It's a topic that's happening now and is going to continue to happen. Whether or not people are actually snitching it doesn't matter. But because we live in a clickbait era, people are going to make these blogs, people are going to make these posts because people act like they care, but it doesn't really matter. Like, people speculated that Gunna snitched, and we have not seen that man once. I think the time that he releases music, if the music is as good as it was before he released, nobody's going to care. They're going to listen to the music. And so snitching is not as, the no snitching code is not as vital as it once was. So in my closing statements, just be mindful. Be mindful of what you're doing. Be mindful of the consequences of your actions. Be mindful of the people you are implementing and the actions that you are doing, for right or wrong, understanding the code that this person follows. Don't just do anything with anyone. Be mindful of, if you do the crime, you more than likely are going to have to do the time. And if you are out here committing crimes, do the time. Don't bring anyone else into your stuff, into your fold. And if you are bringing someone else into your fold, take the crime and take the time that you're being served. Don't sell someone else out for your well-being. You did the crime, you have to do the time. Be mindful of people's characters, because that's the biggest thing if you are involving people in the stuff that you're doing. But also be mindful of the rules that you follow, whether you're a civilian, whether you are a hustler. If you're doing certain things, you have to follow a certain rule. You have to follow certain rules. You have to follow a certain code of ethics. And when you don't do that, there are going to be narratives broadcasted about you that you're going to have to live with. And that's where we are today. As we get out of here, my what to watch for this week, we're going to go with Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Jonathan Majors, man, this man is a great actor. I can't stress enough the range that this man has. Whether you like Marvel or not, whether you like Ant-Man or not, if you don't watch this movie for anything, watch this movie to see the role that this man plays, because he plays that role to death. Once again, my what to watch for this week is Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, because Jonathan Majors is such a great actor. That's the Speak My Peace podcast for this week. I'm out.